Hi, gang. Donna here. Today, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Chelsey James for a wonderful conversation about the music business, her music, including her songs Must Have Been Drunk, The Men and the Boys, and her latest release, Steady. We also discuss, while we're talking about Steady, not only the inspiration, but the craziness of the music video. Because I had to ask after watching it, because she's high atop a rock. Is she scared of heights? And guess what? She is. So she talks about how she had to get up on the rock. And it's not an easy journey. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. It was a lot of fun to record. Hi, Chelsey. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm okay. How's the weather there? We had hail and some storms. So it's actually sunny now. So this was perfect timing.
The weather here is beautiful. Like it's finally starting to feel like fall.
Nice.
I live in southern Missouri, so in the summers it gets really humid, like it's insane. So the humidity has started to die off a little bit and the temperatures are like bearable. It's not an oven outside. So yeah, it's beautiful right now.
Well, I noticed the leaves were changing today. So, fall is coming. And I actually, when I was doing some research on you, you're in the middle of a tour right now in Missouri, correct?
Yes, I'm very busy with shows right now. The fall is always like that. There's all kinds of, festivals and things going on because it's like perfect outdoor weather. So I'm about to get really busy for the next couple months.
That's not a bad thing. Not a
It's
bad
not a
thing.
bad thing. It's after last year, I'm very, very thankful to be busy. So
I, I imagine you are. So I was told that you didn't realize that you could actually sing.
yes, until I was in like my sophomore year of college, probably.
How did you not know this?
So I knew that I could sing on key and like I knew that I wasn't a bad singer. I just thought that everyone could sing on key and that that I wasn't anything special. I just thought it was normal to be able to sing on pitch and sing along to a song. I didn't never consider that like a talent of mine until I was told by other people, like, yeah, you can sing. And I just never, I don't know. I come from, a family of, most people in my family can also sing on key. So like, to me, that was normal.
Yeah.
And, yeah, so it wasn't until college I had some friends who were like, you need to do something. And yeah, it was a very late in life discovery for me. So
So you never took singing or choiring in school or anything like that?
oh, I never tried out for choir because I thought that would be really fun to do, but I never tried out because I didn't want the embarrassment of not making it.
Wow.
I just thought oh, well, those singers, that's what they do. They're way better. They're professional. I just never even put myself in that category. So
So a little bit of imposter syndrome. You wouldn't put yourself in there because you were scared that you weren't the real deal.
yeah, and I think it was anyone who I knew that was singing in choir or some kind of musical theater or whatever it was, they had grown up doing that. So I kind of thought, oh yeah, I can't do that. Like that's not what I was meant to do. I didn't grow up performing or doing anything like that. So I kind of thought, oh, that's just not what I do. I can't, it's too late.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do your friends feel now that you're stepping into it in a big
Oh my
way?
gosh. Well, I mean, they're at every show they can possibly be at. Like my close friends who were there from the beginning, who kind of pushed me into it a little bit, or encouraged me. I shouldn't say pushed, but encouraged me to do this. And they're so supportive. And to this day, like sometimes if I get self-conscious or still have a little bit of that imposter syndrome, I have to go back to them and be like, okay, what am I doing? And they give me that encouragement to this day. So yeah, I'm very thankful for them. They're like my little fan club.
How hard was it? How hard was it the first time you got up on stage? I mean, were you an introvert already or an extrovert already, or were you still an introvert? I mean, how intimidating was it for you?
I would consider myself an extrovert, not in an extreme way. Like I can still get shy a little bit around people I don't know, but you know, it doesn't take me that long to warm up. But singing in front of a crowd was something that I had no experience doing. And, some of my first performances were with a country cover band, and we booked our first live show. And, I was expecting family and friends to be in the audience, but I peeked out behind the stage when it was about showtime, and it was full, it was packed. And I thought, I just felt this sensation come over my body, and I was just numb. And I was like, I don't even think, I wanted to throw up for one. And two, I just thought I was paralyzed. I was like, I don't even know how something is going to come out of my mouth. It just felt impossible to me to get up there. And I told myself right before I went on stage, I'm not even kidding, I told myself, I didn't say this out loud, thankfully, but I was like, okay, I just have to get through this one show. It was like a 2-hour set, 2 hours, and then I never have to do this again. I can quit right after this show, because that's how scared I was. And it sounds really cliche and cheesy, but about 30 seconds into the first song, something just clicked inside me. And I just knew that was what I was supposed to be doing. And I honestly, I can't believe that I never realized that until that moment. It was just crazy. So yeah, I was more than terrified my first show.
Well, and once you get up there, there's nothing like being up on stage. The energy.
Yeah, it's kind of an addicting feeling now. It's like, I still do get nervous a lot, but I think I don't think that's ever going to go away. But yes, it's hard to describe the feeling of that, if once you get past the sheer terror, which you do eventually, there's just no other feeling like it. It's hard to describe. It's like, it's scary, but awesome at the same time. It's like, sometimes I think, what am I doing to myself every week, but it's always worth it. I'm like, every time I hop off stage, I just can't wait to get back up again. So,
there's this big, huge, if the show's going well and the crowd is really into it, there's that energy, that love. That gratification of you're doing a good job. So there's just, dare I say, it's kind of a high.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, I'm addicted to it now. I just, that's part why last year was so hard for me, because that live show aspect was just completely gone. And that's my favorite part of this whole gig is actually playing the live shows, So yes, the best shows are the ones where, everyone's into it. They're paying attention, they're singing along with you. I don't want to stand up there and ever be like, oh, this is everyone watch me. I love when shows are really interactive and we just are all kind of hanging out together.
Yeah.
Those are the best. So
you're based in Missouri right now. Have you thought about moving to Nashville?
So I am such a homebody. And again, this is doing this as a career. Doing this as a career is not something I ever imagined. Even when I first started singing, it was like, okay, I get this. I'm doing the shows, I'm whatever, but still, it took me a while to realize what the music industry was and how I could make a career out of it. So, I'm learning how much goes on in Nashville and why I need to be there for certain things. But, at the same time, I'm such a homebody and I have a lot of family here in Missouri. And, I'm married, my husband and his family are from Missouri, and we live on a farm out in nowhere, and we love it out here. But, I could never see myself permanently moving to Nashville, like that being my primary residence. And what's great is now with technology, you almost don't have to.
Yeah.
So I will say it's getting to the point where I'm there like every 6 weeks now.
Okay.
So I can see myself being like a partial resident someday soon. Like, going and staying for a couple weeks, and then Missouri being my primary home. I'm not a city girl. That it's hard for me to be there for extended periods of time just because of that. But technology has made it so much easier on me, because I can do writing sessions over Zoom. I can do stuff like this over Zoom. I can record vocals here and get it sent out to Nashville and record a song without ever having to even go to Nashville, So I love where I live, and that part of my life is so important. So I want to keep that. But yes, I am in Nashville frequently. I feel like I do live there sometimes part-time, but that's probably not too far off for me, is getting a place of my own out there.
And I mean, if you're comfortable where you are, it's always better to have a home base so you can be grounded. I mean, that's kind of important, because as your success grows, it can become very easy to lose yourself if you don't have that home base.
Yeah. And I feel like I see that happen a lot. It seems like you hear stories. It seems like the more I go to Nashville, the more people I talk to, and then the more stories I hear, because man, is that a big city, yet a really small town. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody's played for everybody. I mean, it's just crazy how connected it is. And I hear so many stories of what fame does to people. And, some people, I had one of my guitar players one night, we were talking after a show out there. We played Whiskey Jam out there, and he was talking about a famous person that he often tours with, and how he tries to disguise himself when he's out and about, because he just, you just want to go to Walmart like a normal person, and you can't even do that. And I'm just like, I said at the beginning of this, I am an extrovert, but at the same time, I don't want that level of fame where you can't go to Walmart. I just can't imagine how people probably don't even realize like how hard that is. Like, yeah, being famous probably, obviously has its perks, but losing that freedom is huge. I just can't even imagine.
Well, and then you have certain expectations placed on you that you have to act a certain way at all times. And now with the internet, if you, dare I say, have a bad day like a normal human being, it's posted all over the place that you're such a tyrant, da 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 da. And it may not even be true because you had a bad day.
Yeah.
But so, I mean, celebrity is a very weird aspect of things. I tend to write about it in my books. So I the Britney Spears thing is a prime example of building up somebody so high to tear her down. And I'm not even talking about the guardianship or anything of that. I'm talking about how we all love Britney. She was built up so high, and then you wait for the fall. And that's kind of what celebrity is like for a lot of people.
Yeah, the older I get and the more stories I hear, it's like, man, I feel like right now I am living the dream and don't even realize it, because I'm getting to do what I love at a good level, but I still get to have my normal life. And I'm like, maybe that's the dream. Maybe I don't need to be famous enough to play all these stadiums and get to that level. It's like, there's a lot you have to give up. There's so much sacrifice, and you do like lose control of your life almost. You have so many people with their hands in your business and what you're doing and your money. And I mean, like the Britney Spears thing. I mean, they probably had her working so much and so hard that she couldn't see or even have time to check on, wow, are these people, spending my money, stealing from me, doing something they shouldn't? It's like you would hope that you'd be able to trust all these people, but you can't always. And there's a lot of stories about that.
And I mean, people like Billy Joel, somebody that you would think, had everything handled. He had people that took money from him,
all the time. And that's, I do think about that. It's like, if I ever, had a song that just hit really big, and I'm like, there's parts of it that I don't know that I want.
Yeah. I mean, that's something you have to be clear with. The one thing about being a creative person, whether it be a singer, an actor, or a writer, if you can do your craft and make an income at it and keep yourself at your core, your true you, and still enjoy your passion and still enjoy getting to do what you do and make somewhat of a living at it, then is fame really worth it? You know?
And that is something that I have kind of come to the conclusion of in the past couple years, because when I first started this, you know, like I said, I was kind of thrown into it very quickly, and I just didn't know what I was doing, frankly. I had no idea what the music industry was even about. And back then, and there's no way that people would know this unless you dove deep into the industry. But it seemed like, okay, as a musician, you're either starving, waiting tables, or you're Carrie Underwood. There's no in between. And that is so not true. And I didn't realize that until I really started like creating an actual business out of this and getting the right people around me to realize, like, oh my gosh, there's this whole mid layer of the music industry that I didn't even know existed. And it's like, those people are killing it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, just like you said, they're getting to do what they love, keeping control of that artistry, that craft, that creation of music, what, you know, making music that they want to make. They're not having someone telling them what to do, what to put out. And they're probably making more money than anyone who has a record deal, because they're getting to keep it. You know, record deals are, I used to think, were the end all be all. If you don't have a record deal, you're not going to be successful. And that is just not the case, because there are a ton of people with record deals, big record deals, who are just barely scraping by because, you know, their record label wants a piece of everything you do. And yeah, there is, I wish I would have known that, you know, there are ways to do what you love and make a living at the same time. You know, it's not something you learn growing up in public school, I feel like.
No.
So, yeah.
I mean, I have a friend who I've known for 25 plus years, and he's in England, and he is a studio musician, but he's also a touring musician. So he's gotten to be on some, big name tours. He's got to be a musical director at one point for the Spice Girls back in the 90s when they were on tour. Yeah. But now he still goes on tour and he still does it. And he's also a professor, and he loves what he does. It's been a passion of his. And even though he tried to start his own thing, he still does what he does. He plays with all these other people and shares his gifts with all these other people. And now he's teaching others. And he was able to buy himself a nice place in England because he didn't have that contract. I mean, there are contracts involved in doing that, but you get your freedom.
Exactly. You know, I always think about Chris Stapleton and think, you know, because he was a songwriter and nobody knew who he was, except he was writing all of the hits. And, you know, he just, when people found out who he was, now he's uber famous. And I just imagine Chris Stapleton as the type of guy who's like, dang, I wish nobody would have found out who I was.
Yeah.
I don't know, but he's like a big example to me of, you know, people think, oh, now he's successful, look how big he is now. And it's like, oh, you have no idea probably the money that he was making before he was playing all these stadiums too. And he could still go to Walmart, and now he can't.
Well, and this is the thing, you know, when people look at a tour, they think, oh, well, you're making boatloads of money. Not necessarily. You know, it goes back to the actor who gets paid, we'll say 20 mil for a movie. Now, granted, that is a lot of money, but unless there's a back end deal on it, let's see, you're going to have your agent, you're going to have your publicist, you're going to have your stylist if you need to, you're going to have your lawyers, your accountant. How much of that 20 mil plus taxes. Don't forget taxes. How much of that 20 mil are you actually getting?
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like, you know, I would used to think it was outrageous, some of the fees that artists charge. And now it's like, oh yeah, well, that's, you know, just like you said, and they're having to pay all their band members, their musicians, you know, manager, booking agent. A lot of that money goes to marketing and promotion for that specific show. I mean, there's so many.
And don't forget t-shirt sales. You have to have the vendors sell the t-shirts, so they have to get paid, the lighting crew.
Man, it's crazy. Like, there is so much to do. Yeah. Like, just behind the scenes. I mean, it really is. You're running a business. Like, if you want to do it right anyway, you're doing all these things, you know. I've been able to get to the point where I can leverage some things. You know, I do have a booking agent now. I've got a PR team. I've got, you know, Burning Ground, who helps me with all kinds of stuff. But gosh, yeah, I can't do it all. I mean, it'd be impossible. And then doing the live shows and touring on top of that, it's like that takes up most of my time right there.
Right. I mean, and then that's the thing. It's not the same thing, because you think, okay, I'm going to be a singer. And I'm just saying in general, somebody says, oh, I'm going to be a singer. It's easy. No, you have this. Somebody the other day, it was about a couple of weeks ago, 2 people said, I want to get into podcasting. I'm like, okay. They're like, it's easy. I'm like, yeah, you sit down, you do this, that's fine. Then you have to edit it. Then you have to market it. Then you have, plus you have to book your guest. And
yes. Anyone running any kind of business, like running a business, like there's so much that goes into running any business. I feel like, you know, but I will say, you know, when I graduated college and got my 9-to-5 job, you know, yeah, I didn't have all of these outside responsibilities. I got to go into work and do my tasks for that day. And at 5 o'clock I was done, and I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to plan. I didn't have to do any of this. And I wasn't happy, you know?
That's what I was going to say. And how rewarding was that?
No, not at all. I hated it. And, you know, it's like now, yeah, maybe I don't have as much free time as I did, but I don't really feel like I'm working every day. You know, I'm busy doing something every day, but it's what I love, and it's just a different feeling. So, yeah, I truly always advocate, you know, life's too short. So find what I mean, most people know what they love to do and what they're good at. I mean, everyone was born with some kind of special skill. Like, even singers, like there's a ton of singers, but we all do it differently, you know? And I truly feel like everyone has something like that in them. So figure out what that is and figure out how to make money doing it. I mean, seriously, life is too short to sit behind a desk doing something you hate every day.
I totally agree. I mean, when your job is soul sucking and you have a passion on the side, well, sometimes that can help. If it gets to be too much, then you lead up with anxiety and stress, and you're not able to do what you love because you're so worn down and beat down from the other that you can't pursue the, you know, what you really love.
Exactly. Yep. Totally agree.
So now that we've dug into fame and all this fun stuff, I was looking at your video for Steady, which is the brand new single I have not forgotten. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Firstly,
I want to go to the video because I take it you're not scared of heights.
No, I am. That was quite a day.
I'm sure.
Well, my video producer sent me a picture of this place, and I was like, yes. And he said there are trails. He said the word trails that you can get up to the top. I'm like, great, trails. That's fine. I'll bring some tennis shoes. Well, when I get there, he's like, okay, let me show you how we're going to get up there. And I pull up and I'm like, interesting. I don't see where there would be trails. But I'll follow them and see where we're going. And these rock formations are just, I mean, it's straight up. They're 150 feet straight up. So I'm like, interesting. Okay. So I follow him and he is leading me to this. It's not a trail. It's more like a space between two of the rock formations that a body could fit in between.
Wow.
That you climb. So we had to you had to Spider-Man climb like up to the top. And yeah, there was like a rock here and there you could put your foot on. But when you get to the top, you know, you're in between two rock formations. And when you're in this little space, when you get to the top, it drops. There's nothing on the other side. So when you get up and you pull yourself up, you have to go left or right up onto the rock, and you have a little sliver to step up on to get up onto the rock, but it's 150 feet down. Anyway, I had a meltdown at first because I'm so afraid of heights that I can't even climb a ladder hardly. And they said, you drove 8 hours to get here. You did your hair and makeup. Like, you have to. And I'm like, oh, you're right. So, and I climbed it in the outfit that I filmed in.
You are lucky. I was going to ask if you climbed it in that outfit because, I mean, you're lucky you didn't cut yourself up.
I know. I tied the skirt up in a knot so that it wouldn't get in my way. And I had my crew, someone was in front of me and someone was behind me, and they just wouldn't let me stop. At the top, when I looked over and down, he was like, close your eyes and give me your hand. And he just pulled me up because he knew I was frozen. And when I got up there, it took me a few minutes to not be panicky. And kind of figure out the layout, and because I kind of had to stand at the edge at some of them. And yeah, I was up there for a couple hours too. So
where is it?
It is in Western Kansas. I'm trying to think of the, it's near a town called Oakley, Kansas. So yeah, but it's out toward Colorado, kind of just middle of absolute nowhere. I mean, there is nothing out there. Yeah, everything else is flat, and it has these salt rock formations and or chalk, which now I understand why the whole KU chant is rock chalk, because I guess they have these chalk rocks out in Kansas. So I never knew where that came from, but yeah, it was so worth it though, because it was so beautiful up there, and the shots turned out really cool. So, but yeah, definitely had to overcome.
Yeah, because I saw that, I'm like, there's no way I would do that. I guess the highest height I've been when I was a teenager, my grandmother and I were on the public bus in New Orleans, and we were on the Greater New Orleans Bridge.
Yeah,
and there was only one span at the time, and the bus broke, and so they pull this bus in front of another, our bus, but you have to walk, and the grate on the bridge, the sidewalk on the bridge is just a grate. It's an open grate, and you have cars whizzing by, and you're just like, okay, no.
That sounds awful. I hate bridges. There's a bridge on my way to Nashville, and it's kind of sketchy like that. And there was a wreck, and traffic got backed up, and it's a lot of semis travel this road. Yeah. So the bridge just got filled with semis, and I'm sitting here thinking, what's the weight limit on this thing? Seriously, I mean, is anyone paying attention to this?
Yeah.
But I'm here. I survived. But yes, not a fan of heights.
No, I understand. So I know that Steady was a collaborative effort, but what was the inspiration behind it?
So the song is inspired by my husband, actually. My husband is very steady that's where I got the idea for the song, because steady is 100% the best word to describe him. He's very laid back, just, doesn't get worked up. Nothing bothers him. He's always happy. I can only think of a few times that he's even raised his voice, ever, not even just with me, just ever. And I'm the total opposite. I'm not laid back. I'm completely type A, anxiety, passionate, loud. I have a bit of a temper, we're complete opposites in that aspect. And so, I'm not a very like mushy person, especially publicly. I don't, this is really just about the only love song I have so far. I'm just not good at expressing those kind of feelings. It's easier for me to write man-hating songs, which are not about my husband, they're about other people. But yeah, I had the idea for this because of him and our relationship, and I had, half the chorus stuck in my head for like 6 months, and I just wasn't sure where it was going exactly. And I pitched it in a few other writing sessions, and you never know, someone has a better idea, or no, they're just not feeling that day or whatever. And I'm thankful that it came out in the writing session that it did, and who I wrote it with, because I can't imagine the song being any more perfect. I feel like it totally, that day when we wrote it, we were just able to capture exactly what I was thinking, and what I couldn't figure out to say all these months was able to come out in this writing session. So I think, every song is meant to come out when it's ready. And I think you can't push it, it's like, you'll know when it's ready to come out. It'll just start flowing out of you. And, I try not to force a song in a writing session. So, but yeah, it's about my husband, Lucas, basically.
Well, this actually brings me back to, let's go back to us, to the fact that you said you couldn't sing. So, or you didn't know you could sing. Were you writing your own lyrics or poetry back before you started singing?
It's funny because I, for a while in college, was a journalism major. And I loved writing. I wrote for the school newspaper. I never wrote poetry really or anything like that, but like college, as far as writing papers for me, if that was the assignment, writing a paper, I mean, I could do that all day. I could write 10-page papers, like no problem. Public speaking was a different story for me, but it was always, the writing was so much easier. And I loved doing that. I ended up switching to business because I couldn't see how I was going to make a career out of writing, which is so funny. So I switched to business because I thought, well, that's more practical, which it ended up, helping a lot. But yeah, I loved to write. I just didn't connect the dots with writing music ever. I never thought that was something I'd be able to do, because I can't read music to this day. I can't read music. I really don't play an instrument very well. And somehow it works though.
That's all that matters. So when you were talking about man-hating songs, I take it that Must Have Been Drunk and The Men and the Boys.
Yeah. Those songs. Yeah, Men and the Boys. I went into a writing session the day that I wrote that song with some friends, and I was like, I don't really know what I want to write, but I know I want to write something that both men and women will like listening to, because I feel like as a female artist in country music, it's hard sometimes to put out music that men like listening to. And capturing both audiences can be difficult, but so that's what I said. And Oren, one of the writers, he's like, well, I've had this idea for writing about, that saying, what separates the men from the boys. And immediately I'm like, oh, I can write about that. I've got, I've got experience with boys in my life. And I immediately, when he said that, thought about, we have these country bars in Springfield, Missouri, where I went to college. We have a few country bars in town, and my friends and I, when we would go to them, it's like just always a sea of fake cowboys in the song. We call them catalog cowboys. It's like
Mm-hmm.
they're dressed the part, they look the part, but they've probably never actually worked on a farm or anything like that a day in their life. It's such an act. And I just kind of thought about that, and I'm like, oh yes, we could totally write about that, about the struggle of trying to find a real man in today's world. So that's what that one's about. But Must Have Been Drunk, actually, Cole Phillips, my co-writer on that one, he had the idea for that tagline, I must have been drunk when I fell in love with you. And again, I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, it's just we thought this is a good way. It's a country breakup song, but it's not a super sad and depressing song. It's more of kind of a funny way of saying, oops, I messed up. I shouldn't have dated that person. That was stupid. That was a mistake. So it's kind of a lighthearted breakup song, but kind of just a funny twist on it. But I definitely, like most women, I feel like, have plenty of experience with bad relationships, making terrible decisions, dating certain people, and it gives me a lot of material.
Yeah, life does that. Life has a way of giving you material, whether it be songwriting or writing. It gives you a lot of material to play with. It definitely does.
It does.
So when will there be a record coming out or an album?
Well, I don't actually know the answer to that specifically right now. However, because we're thinking about, because last year's pandemic, I was able to write a lot of music, and I've kind of continued doing that. And, we've had this plan of putting out singles, kind of like I have been, but now we do kind of have a collection of songs that I have ready to go. So we've talked about doing like an EP. I will have new music, a new song coming out in October, but there's a chance that I might have like a multi-song EP early next year as well. So I'm excited. I'm working on recording some new stuff as we speak. So
will there be a new video for the new song too?
Yeah, well, not the one in October. We won't be doing like a full-blown music video. We'll do some other, like, we have some visualizer and like shorter video kind of things, but we are planning for a next music video for sure.
Duran Duran, for their new release for a song called Invisible, used a visualizer to do the whole computerized version of the video, which was different. So it seems like that is something that's going to be a popular way to present videos in the near future, or the not too distant future.
I can't even keep up anymore. It's like technology just keeps changing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to learn another, like, I'm trying to learn TikTok, and it's like I don't know. It's hard to keep up with it all because there's always new apps and trends, and it's like, golly, you got to keep up with all this and change.
And that was the one thing, I've talked to a couple other artists, and it's like, besides doing your craft, which is, playing a gig or recording, then you have to take so much time now and social media market.
Yes, it's a full-time job in itself. That's something that I hope to actually bring on another team member at the beginning of next year to kind of help me with, because I am not a social media guru by any means. Like, I get the basics of it, but it has gotten so complex now. I mean, people get degrees in this stuff now, and it's like, I don't necessarily have the time to learn all the little details and ins and outs, and the algorithms are constantly changing. And I have beat myself up about that constantly, of not feeling like I'm up enough with the times of social media, and I'm not trendy enough on social media. And I've kind of tried to stop beating myself up about it so much, because it's like, I can only do so much, but I'm trying.
Exactly. And then you have the whole potential now of, I think Instagram does it too, Instagram and TikTok. If somebody watches your video, but they don't watch it all the way through and they've liked it already, then you have the potential of being shadow banned.
Yeah. And it's so weird. Like, I can't figure it out. It's like, I'll post a picture and I got like 700 some likes on this one picture I posted. And then the next one got like 50. It's just like, you know, I don't know, but I definitely, that's something, another thing that I definitely will be seeking help for probably at the beginning of next year. Cause you know, like I said, we've brought on a booking agent to the team and we just have more and more music to put out and we're playing more and more shows. And I expect 2022 to be quite busy for me, which is exciting, but yeah, I'm definitely going to need more help.
And the one thing you have to consider, I mean, at least you're smart enough to understand that this is a game, that you're not going to sit here and go, oh, I had 700 likes and then I had 5. You're not allowing your mood to go up and down based on this, where there's a lot of people that are, I want to be Instagram famous. They get that hit. And then the next day they get nothing. You're competing with a computer.
You know, I heavily rely on, as far as marketing myself goes, you know, social media, you have to do it. You have to do the social media. It's just non-negotiable nowadays. But I always make it a point to put most of my time into my creation of music and my live shows, because at the end of the day, that is what it's about. You know, it's like, great, I can have all these awesome pictures on social media, but if I suck live, or, you know, if my show is crap, then what does it matter? Like, at the end of the day, those are the things that matter the most. And those are the things I love to do the most anyway. And I feel like I'm better at those than I am social media and all this other stuff. So that's what I focus most of my time on. And that's what I can control. And it's working. You know, I try. You just can't compare. You'll never measure up if you do. I mean, there's no way. I mean, it's impossible nowadays with social media. So I really try not to overthink it too much.
Well, what I was going to say is the one amazing thing that you can do is perform live, because there's a built-in, so now, I mean, unfortunately, somebody's going to pick up their phone and record you. And if they record you and post it, then there's marketing without ever doing it yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
And I truly believe that no matter what technology comes along, how much it advances, you know, word of mouth and a personal connection is always going to be the strongest form of marketing that there ever will be. I mean, at the end of the day, especially in the music industry, like, it is who you know, not what you know, not necessarily what you're doing even, but it is who you know. And that's why, you know, I focus on those live shows so much, because it's like, I want to give people such a good experience that they're going to go tell a friend. And that's honestly how I get the majority of my bookings anyway. It's not necessarily, oh, you had a really cool picture on social media, we want to book you for this show. No, it's like, hey, we saw you live or whatever, you know, and we want you to come play here. That's, at the end of the day, that's still what it is. So
are you going to be doing any dates outside of Missouri?
That is the goal. You know, this year's been kind of weird because COVID is still, you know, and especially at the beginning of the year, it's like everything was still so uncertain. So I've stayed pretty close to home. I have played out in Nashville whenever I go out there, but yes, next year I hope to be playing more of like the whole Midwest and Mid-South region, and traveling a lot more. That's what we're planning on. So
what would be your dream gig?
Oh man, I feel like I have different categories of those. Like I always have dreamed of playing the Grand Ole Opry. But that, I feel like that's kind of a different category almost, you know, it's like, that's kind of like that's like a bucket list thing to me. But I feel like a dream gig for me would be, oh gosh, honestly, I'm thinking like opening for someone, like one of my legends, like opening for Carrie Underwood and doing a duet during a show with her or something.
Nice.
That would be
Well,
my dream gig, is
that kind of good.
getting to sing at a live show with Carrie Underwood, because like I feel like is kind of who I learned to sing from by just listening to her records when I was in high school over and over and over. So that would be pretty cool.
That kind of was my next question, because I was going to say, who would be your dream collaboration? So obviously you've already answered.
Carrie Underwood, man. It's just like her voice is insane. I think I'd be terrified to like sing in a studio or anywhere with her, to be honest, because she just, I don't know, that woman is like an alien. But
I actually interviewed somebody a couple weeks ago, Peyton Howie, that when she was 5, she got pulled up on stage by Carrie.
Are you serious?
Seriously. Her mom, she said that her mom had like played this record over and over again, and she's like, we're going to this concert. So they went to the concert, and of course they got kind of pushed out into the main aisle because they were near the front, and Carrie apparently stopped singing because Peyton was in the aisle dancing, stopped singing, had her bodyguard go get her, and brought her up on stage.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that would be a dream.
Yeah.
Also terrifying, but yeah, that's crazy.
But at 5, you don't think about those things. You're just like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You're like, nope, no pressure when you're 5, but
no.
Man, that's
now that would be terrifying.
Yes, exactly. There's so many people, I mean, that I would love to sing and play with. I mean, especially like, I feel like a lot of, not necessarily very well known artists. I'm really, really into this guy. His name is Paul Coffin. He's from Texas. And he's like one of those, he's not famous, but I mean, to his fans he is, but he has like a cult following almost. But he's not on the radio. He's not a mainstream artist, but the guy is just a total badass and puts on, I mean, one of the best shows I've ever seen, and is so like unapologetically himself and doesn't care what anyone else thinks. And I think that is like the new trend of music, is like, okay, we're going back to, hey, we're not following trends anymore. We want super unique, individualist kind of people. And that's what I love. So I would love to do a collaboration with him as well one day. So that might be that. Maybe I can make that happen. I keep like stalking him on Instagram to see if he'll recognize my name, like, oh, Chelsey James. Yeah, that girl like has liked every single picture.
I'm going to say this because on Instagram, I have reached out to a couple of people, and a couple have become guests of my podcast. See? So, just do it. Yeah. As one of my friends, just do it.
I mean, it can't hurt, right? I mean, he either doesn't respond, or, that's probably the worst that happened. He just doesn't respond. So
yeah, I mean, you never know if you put it out there, and it may take a few weeks. You never know what can happen. But unless you try, you'll never know.
Exactly. Yep.
You'll never know. So, you were talking about radio, and I had the radio gig a long time ago, but I don't know that radio holds the weight that it used to. I really don't.
No. And sometimes I feel like I am not allowed to say this, or I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, or I shouldn't say this, but I feel like radio is not going to be around much longer at all. Mainstream radio.
Well, I have to say this, and because I worked at 2 different types of radio stations, and they were in the 90s. The first station I worked at, we got to pick everything we played. If you called in, I could put that request in, as long as it wasn't like 5 minutes apart. I could do that. The second radio station I worked at, everything was pre-programmed. I stood there with the computer board right in front of me, checked the levels, had my mic, and that was it. You called in for a song, sorry. So I think when we switched to technology like that, you took an element out of it. I can go to Spotify and create a playlist that meets my liking. I can download music and put it on my phone and have it wherever I want.
Yeah, 100%. And, people often ask me, they're like, oh, or they'll say, you should be on the radio, or why aren't you on the radio, or when are you going to be on the radio? And I don't ever go into the whole spiel, but I'm just like, I don't know, but in my mind, I'm thinking, because the top 3 record labels control all of that. And it radio now, literally, who was saying, oh, Bobby Bones, he just kind of got in a little bit of trouble for kind of uncovering this. He's been making TikToks kind of talking about the inside secrets of the music industry. And he basically put a TikTok out talking about radio and how it works. And he's like, like number 1 hits aren't always just number 1 hits because that more people like that song and more people request it. He's like, that's not even how it works. He's like, these labels will trade, spots, and it's like they control everything. And literally the top 30 songs in country music are just on a loop, and that's what's played over and over and over. And yeah, the people are speaking. That is why Spotify is going to take over the world. And because people have there's so much music out there, and it's like people have bigger palettes, I guess. And it's like, there's so many artists you can discover on Spotify that radio will never play. Yeah. And like you said, the radio station can't even play requests. I mean, what? So yeah, I think radio is quickly on its way out. And I don't think that it's a bad thing necessarily, because I think the playing field,
it's more leveled then.
Should be leveled a little bit, because on Spotify, yeah, I mean, with anything in the music industry, there's going to be manipulation, but it is leveled in these
well and I mean, the one thing I've learned, because I use it when I write, the fact of the matter is, when I'm sitting there, I'll end up creating playlists for my books. But once my playlist ends, it starts playing random stuff. And I have discovered more artists based on that. And then I'll go, because I really liked it, I'll end up downloading it on Apple or wherever. And the fact is, I've learned these people I would have never heard of on radio.
Yeah, exactly. And they're getting their chance, and it's making it easier for people like me to have an actual career in this, because you're not necessarily having to fight for that top 30 spot in Nashville. You know what I mean? It's like, that's impossible. If you don't have a record label like Sony or someone behind you who's pushing your stuff, it's like, I mean, what are you supposed to do? But yeah, it's allowed for independent artists to actually make it in this industry. And it's opened up like a whole new world of the music industry, which I'm all about, because I feel like there's enough room for everybody. Truly. I mean, if you are truly passionate about it and this is your life's work, and you spend the time to make quality music and actually do it right, I feel like there's room for everyone who does that.
That's like talking to Ricky Duran from when he was on The Voice. He was basically told, you don't want to win. I mean, when you think about that statement, you don't want to win. His coach told him this. And that's because you, number one, are going to be locked into a contract that's not going to necessarily benefit you, but benefit the organization. And when you start talking about record companies, same thing with book companies or even TV, anything, how much of yourself and your creativity are you willing to give up?
Yeah, and it's sad. I mean, I hear more stories about like horror story first time record deals. And I don't know. I understand the situation that some people are in, because there are some people who, like I said at the beginning, you're either starving or you're carrying under, and there's some people who literally are in that position. I mean, think of like Priscilla Block, the new up and comer country singer. And, literally she talks about she couldn't even pay her bills. And here she is now, like I said earlier, though, she's not making as much money as people probably think, but she's getting her name out. Her name is out there. Everyone knows her music, so there's that benefit. You're going to be heard. but at what cost? So
right. And that's the whole thing, wrapping this right back to fame is how much of yourself are you willing to have managed
yeah.
and created for you?
And, I think that a lot of people do have a different answer for that. I think it depends a lot on what phase in your life you're in. And, I might have a different answer if I were 20 years old and single and in that
Right.
part of my life, I might be willing to give up more of that. I would say now where I'm at, I'm married, I'm kind of settled a little bit more. I've had more life experience. I just have a different answer now, and I see things totally different. And I see the benefits of having a normal life and getting to be home and spend time with my family. These people who they sign a record deal and they're put on the road for 300 days, 300 tour dates a year or whatever it is. And it's like, say bye to your family, It's
Well,
like,
not only bye to your family, you're dealing then with people wanting to know you, wanting to touch you, wanting to have a piece of you that don't understand that you're a normal person. Then to overcome the stage high, because just like if you were working a midnight shift, you're wound up. You can't go right to bed. So you're trying to come off this high. And so the best way to come off a high off a stage, because everybody wants to hang out, is let's go party. So then you go party and then you pass out because you partied too much with either drinking, sometimes, other substances. And then, and then maybe hooked up with somebody because you were under the influence. And it's just, and when you're 20, it's very easy to have somebody say, hey, I got this contract for you. I'm going to make you a star. And you'll be like, okay.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah. It's the physical side of it too. Like they are just running themselves ragged. Like I like Priscilla Block, for example, she's kind of in that stage right now of, she just recently signed her deal. They put her on a tour there, she's constantly like, oh God, posting, oh God, 30 minutes of sleep last night. Here I go. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, it seems so fun and exciting and glamorous and whatever. But I'm like, man, sometimes I'm like, I worry about these people. It's like, I don't know them personally, but I'm like, oh man, honey, you're going to crash so hard one day and get sick, or like,
well, and that'll affect you later on in life. You don't realize that when you're that young, but it'll affect you later on in life. I mean, I know bigger bands that, they would talk about, they would go from one city to another city. They wouldn't have a chance to look around to sightsee or anything. And as they're walking out on stage, somebody's like, okay, here we are in Detroit. Because they had no clue, because they went from a hotel to a plane to a stage.
Yeah, it's like, everyone thinks, oh, you get to travel. It's like, yeah, you see the inside of a van or a plane or a bus or whatever, like you said, a hotel room. There's not much glamorous about it, really. Yeah, when you get to the stage of like George Strait, that's when it's glamorous.
Well, and the one thing, the one thing I know, because I have met some people, and I've always talked to them, I've avoided talking about their music for the most part. Because the last thing you guys want to hear when you're out on the road for 300 and something days is somebody coming over and say, so how was the music? I love your song. You kind of have to talk to, I think I've gotten better responses talking to people as they're human, as they're normal, because what normal contact do you guys have?
Yeah. Even me, like I'm not at the level of like any sort of real fame. And sometimes even I'm like, can we talk about something else? How's music going? And I'm just like, how's it going?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I start this spiel, it's going to take 2 hours to explain what all is going on. And I'd rather just talk about something else.
Yeah. I went to the Vampire Diaries original convention, because I wanted to meet Joseph Morgan, and I wanted to give him a copy of my book because he helped inspire part of it. So I deliberately went online, found a movie that he had done on DVD because it was a meet and greet. So it's like, I knew everybody was going to have what? Oh, the originals, Vampire Diary stuff. That's all anybody is going to bring to him. So I brought him this DVD and he looked at me. He's like, oh, that movie's bollocks. It's a bad movie. But the thing is, it stopped. He stopped for a second and we had a conversation. He's like, do you realize I'm holding a gun on that cover and I never hold a gun in the whole movie? So he tells me this whole story because I presented this to him.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause it's something different, it's like a different question. It's like, they do get asked the same questions. And I feel like too, now it's like people will say, how's music going? That's how it's usually written. I just say good. Like I'm just like, there's so much to it. It's like, what do you say? But if someone has something different, like, or specific, or, something that people don't ask, you're like, oh, wow. Like you pay attention, like you actually care about this or whatever. So
that's kind of why, when I have musical guests on this show, and yes, we usually have a better two moment, and you really didn't have a hardcore better two moment. So, but we did talk about a lot of interesting things. But I feel that even if you're a musical guest, yeah, we're going to talk about your music. We're going to talk about your book, whatever. Mm-hmm. But I want to get to know you as a person. I want to have this be a conversation between you and I. And that's what the people that I've heard feedback from like that. I don't want to make this, okay, here, I got another interview to do. I'm going to talk about the record. I want it to be fun. I want people to get to know who you are.
Yes. And this is my favorite kind of well, I say interview, it doesn't even feel like that. I kind of forgot I was being recorded, honestly, but I love that. I love the conversation and it's easy to talk about the music industry, the entertainment industry with someone who understands the other side of it, because it, like when I try to talk sometimes about how music is going with family members, it's like, unless I wanted to have a 2 long hour conversation with them about how the music industry actually works, it's kind of hard to talk about with them and confusing. And it's like, they don't understand, why aren't you on the radio? Like, I don't get it. And it seems like maybe I'm failing because I'm not on the radio. And it's like to try and explain how all that works. And, at a dinner conversation, it's just can be hard sometimes. So it's nice to talk to someone who understands the industry as well, and you don't have to explain yourself and why I'm not on the radio or why I'm not doing this or whatever.
20 years ago, if you were saying you were trying to get on the radio, I'd say, okay, I get you. If you were saying, okay, I'm going to get my video on CMT or the Nashville network, okay, yeah, I can understand that. But now there are so many other so many other sources to get your name out there. Oh, I can put it on YouTube and then tag it over here. There's a guest I'm going to be interviewing coming up, and I went over to his YouTube channel and I found these songs that aren't on his Spotify that I had no clue of. And I'm like, wow, I love this stuff. I can't wait to talk to him about it. And I know the interview's not about this, but it's something that, so I think you're not a failure. You're doing your thing. And if you're following your passion, and you get to go perform live and you have people loving you and you're making money on it, then I think it would definitely be better too that you realize you could sing.
Yeah, that's all I want. And I've realized that throughout this journey is like, I've had to sit down and think, what do I actually want? That is it. I want to be able to create music I love, put it out, let people hear it and perform and make a living at it, not just it be a hobby where I'm having to work 9 to 5 and I'm exhausted and spending my evenings, doing this. It's like, I want this to be my life. And honestly, it's kind of crazy to say that I'm basically there. Like, it's kind of crazy when you think like, okay, I'm actually kind of living my dream in a way, because that was always the goal, and I'm doing that. So it's a good place to be. I will say it feels good. I've worked really hard to get here. And it kind of feels like everything's just starting to pay off finally. And I'm doing exactly what I've always wanted to do.
Well,
So
some people have told me it's better to be slow and steady. And the fact of the matter is, if you're at a place where you're happy doing it, when you get more success, you're definitely going to be more grounded about it. So,
yeah. And that's one thing is I've always, and I've told my team this, it's like my number one thing, it's a requirement. I cannot stray away from this, is like everything I do and my music, interviews, whatever it may be. I always want to be approachable and authentic. Like that's the biggest thing to me, because it's always such a turnoff for me when artists are like up on this pedestal and they're just kind of fake. They have this fake persona. I think that's a huge turnoff to me, and I'm sure it is to a lot of other people. So like that's the biggest thing to me, is like never let me go away from that. So
never buy into your own hype.
yeah. Yeah.
Never buy into your own hype. That's a major lesson for a lot of people.
Yep.
So sure. If you had one piece of advice to give somebody that was thinking about getting into the music business, what would you tell them?
Only one? I have like a million.
Well, we'll do another show.
Chelsey's advice. We'll call that's what the episode will be called. Chelsey's life advice in general. Okay, the one thing. Normally I would say like, oh, stay true to yourself, but I feel like that's too cliche. So one piece of, I will say I'll give a piece of like practical business music advice. Like I said earlier, I feel like this is a mistake that a lot of people make. We were talking about social media earlier and how that's very important and all of that. And you can make a career out of it, but I feel like people almost put too much into that and then forget about the other stuff. And I think sometimes the music part of the industry and being an artist gets forgotten about. And it's like, you spend all your time doing all this other stuff. And it's like, oh, and then let's put out a song. You know, I try to do things the opposite way of that. And it's like, no, I'm going to write. You know, I have tons of songs that no one's ever going to hear because I don't think they're good enough to put out. You know, it's like, so I write. And when I feel the song, that's when I immediately know if it's going to go out or not. Cause it just, to me, I just want it to be that certain level. So my piece of advice is focus as much time as you possibly can on the creative aspect of it and creating the music, because at the end of the day, the music is what matters, whether you have good social media or not.
Yeah.
So don't forget about that part of it. Like that's the part you have to make it. You can't have anything else without that. So don't, spend as much time and most of your time creating and being the artist. And, that's what people are going to gravitate to is, like, it's just like, look at Chris Stapleton. Like we said, this guy's got, look at him. He hasn't shaved in 2 years. He doesn't look like a star. He doesn't act like a star. He barely posts on social media, but his songs are too good to deny and nothing else matters because of his songs.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my advice. Spend a lot of time writing music.
Well, it's good advice. It's very good advice. I thank you. It's been a pleasure, Chelsey, talking to you.
Yes, I have loved this. Thank you so much for having me. I loved this conversation. It was so easy. It did not feel like an interview at all.
Well, hang on. I'm going to put all your social media links and your bio on all the platforms when this is released. And check you next time, guys. Take care. Thanks, guys, for tuning in to the Better 2 podcast. Your listenership is greatly appreciated. If you like what you hear, remember to hit subscribe. We also have our videos on YouTube. They're usually posted the same day as the podcast, and you should check it out. If you have a question or you would like to be a guest on the show, please drop me an email, and I'll be glad to talk to you about it. The email is Dauna, Dauna, at thebetter2podcast.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and catch you next time.